Well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart, actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%.
It's not, and that's the problem. That's the problem. He doesn't know, or he's lying. But either way, he's wrong.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
See, so why is it that you are prescribing that people behave in a certain way based on information that you don't even know? Oh my God, the debate is over right there.
I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks.
Right.
Take a listen.
Let's listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all.
Oh, man, look at Nick's face. Look at this. They put him up on the screen so you could see his facial reactions as he's listening to himself say these terrible and horrible things. And look, you can tell he's very uncomfortable.
No, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Right.
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
These numbers concerning black people who murder people, do you know where they get them from? They get them from the police who arrest black men for committing murder. So they're already in prison, right? The black people that are doing this shit, right? How do you think they get these numbers? Do you think they're just speculating? It's based off of, hey, the police arrested this guy for murder. And when you take a look at the percentage of black people who are in prison for violent crimes, it's less than 1% of the entire population. So how do you get from less than 1% of the entire population? That's all the evidence you have. Anything else is just your fucking imagination. It's a fantasy. It's something you just making up in your head. Right? It would be like me saying, well, you know, in reality, I bet there are a ton of white guys that are just murdering people and getting away with it in the middle of the country. And I'm sure that's exactly what is happening. But I cannot say that with any degree of certainty because I have no real evidence to back that shit up. So how are you making the leap from less than 1% to the grand majority of the population? Let's see what he says.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that.
That's
you just said
problem.
Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that.
Right, because we know that, you know, black murderers, they just get let off scot-free all the time, right? Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And furthermore, Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist. He's not concerned about black people killing black people. He's concerned about black people killing white people. But the reality is over 80% of white people that are killed in this country are killed by white people. And so it seems like you're focusing on a very small problem. If your concern is white people being killed, don't you think you should prioritize the group of people that are doing over 80% of the murders, which, of course, that's white men? Of course not. Of course, that's not a problem.
That's a great point.
You think it's funny, or?
Yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people.
He's talking about raccoons, obviously. The self-hating black people that listen to his show and swallow his fucking drivel.
People are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot up?
Those black people aren't watching your show. The black people who live in the hood that are actually dealing with that shit, they're not watching your show. The privileged black people who live in suburbs, the grand majority of which I believe are immigrants or the descendants of immigrants, which is, you know, humiliating for me to have to admit because I am an immigrant. But, you know, this is the reality. These are black people, black kids who've never even been in as much as a fist fight, much less having to deal with gun violence in the hood. So, no, sir, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And those blacks that follow you, they're not even black. They're self-hating, just raccoons.
All the time. That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son
we could
went
go
to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was this remind
Yeah,
me?
and so do poor white people. That's what all poor people do when they make some money is they leave their low income crime infested neighborhood, and they're white ones of that, by the way. But whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, well, it doesn't matter. You go to where is the best place that you can afford to live. That's what you do. That's what everybody does.
Again, the percentage of black.
You know, when you grow up lower to center middle class as a white person, they leave their neighborhoods as well, right? If you grow up in a household that makes over $100,000 as a white child, a white boy, and then you go to a good university and then you end up working for Goldman Sachs, or you're working on Wall Street, or you start a business and now you're a multimillionaire. Guess what? They don't go back to their hood and live in the suburbs they grew up in. No, they go and they move to Beverly Hills. They move to Manhattan. They move to Miami, right? Live in high-rise apartments, drive luxury cars. This is what everybody does when they make more money. So why is it that these racists feel the need to try and make it some kind of, you know, black people are saying, I hate black people. That's why I moved out of where I lived once I started making more money.
Men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
Less than 1 in 100 black U.S. men.
Right. We have less than 1% of the entire black population is in prison for a violent crime. And again, violent crime doesn't just mean murder. So how does he get to 5%, which is what 1 in 20 would be?
Commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in
have?
20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men.
Let's ask ChatGPT real time. Is it true that 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder? Short answer, no. 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder is not a true or accurate statement. That claim comes from misusing lifetime arrest statistics, which is what all of these white supremacist grifters do. They use arrest statistics when black people are the most exonerated group of people in America, which also tells you something about the way how black people are policed in this country, right? But misusing lifetime arrest statistics and confusing, because they're fucking stupid, arrests with actual committing of murder. Where does the 1 in 20 claim come from? That figure is usually traced to this idea about 5 to 6% of black men will be arrested for homicide at some point in their lifetime. But arrest does not equal guilt. Don't forget, when you're black, you're guilty until proven innocent. Using FBI and DOJ data consistently, the annual murder offender rate for black males is roughly between 0.03% and 0.05% a year. That means in a given year, about 99.95% plus percent of black men do not commit murder. So if we take a look at the FBI, the fucking FBI, because again, you know, some people, some of these racists, they see I use ChatGPT and they want me to walk them through the sources as well, because they just refuse to believe the fact that everything they believe to be true is a fucking lie. So in 2019, this is a total amount of black murderers. If we add these two numbers together, this is the amount of male victims who were killed by black people, and this is the amount of female victims that were killed by black people. Add those two numbers together, you get 3,218. The total number of people in the US who identified as black, alone or in combination, in 2019 was 46.8 million. So let's go ahead and divide this number by that. That amounts to 0.006% of the entire black population committed a murder in 2019. And so when these white supremacists say black people are a problem and we have a problem with violence and black people, they're killing everybody, we need to do something about them. They're saying they need to do something about 0.006% of the entire black population. How is this a black population problem? How is this we have a problem with black people when over 99% of the black people aren't doing the shit that you're complaining about? Even if we double this number, right, to account for the fact that most murders are committed by men, and men make up roughly 50% of the population, even if we double it, we're still at 0.01% of all black men, right? Not even 1% of black men.
Statistics, they say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say?
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100, or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But,
will be arrested. Arrested, sir.
Whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too.
Yeah.
Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 60.
So tell me why it is. Here's something they also never explain. Why is it that the amount of murderers in the white population is okay? Why is it okay? Nick Fuentes would like you to believe that the amount of white men committing murders in the country is fine. It's healthy for our society.
5% of the population, blacks are 13%. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass shootings.
What's with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry.
That's nothing new. White people typically don't live around black people. In fact, I'm sure Nick Fuentes has never lived around black people. Whatever black people could afford to live in the privileged suburb that he grew up in, I'm sure none of them ever committed a murder or an act of violence against anybody, much less him or somebody he knows. And so tell me, what was the problem with those black people, Nick? I'm sure he wouldn't be able to give you an answer for that.
You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest.
We talked about this. This is the strategy he uses, right? when he was trying to explain why dating is gay, why dating women as a straight man is gay. He's trying to make it so that everybody's gay, so that when you find out, when hard evidence comes out, which there is already, in my opinion, pretty damning evidence of the fact that this man, you know what I'm saying, he's sexually attracted to men. But when real hard evidence comes out, you'll be able to say, well, oh, technically everyone's gay. You're gay. You ever fucked a girl outside of marriage? See, you're gay. And so now he wants to make everybody racist because he's a fucking racist.
Is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all. Well,
then let's leave him out of it.
Let's
leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing, and there's a political culture.
Wow, they always play the victim. They can't. This has been their problem, the white supremacists. This has been their problem since day one. They cause their own problems and then cry about it when people show them that they're the one that caused their own problems.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point.
And the sad thing this all reveals is that there are so many racists in America. Because Nick only feels comfortable saying this because he believes that there's a large enough percentage of the population who will not care or mind that he's racist because they are also racists.
The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank
so I want
you.
to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely.
Now, here's the thing. The low IQ retard will hear this and think that this stops. If somebody is going to actually take this approach in life, this stops at them what? Not getting on the elevator when a black guy's in the elevator, crossing the street when they see a black guy walking down the street, even though, again, 99.9% of black people in any given year will not commit a murder statistically. But, okay. But what happens when someone who thinks like this has to hire people? Do you see why DEI and affirmative action is necessary? Nick has already exposed that there are a lot of white people who feel like this. This is why he's comfortable talking like this, because he's not worried that he's going to, make it so that he can't have any fans and continue to earn a living. And so what happens when one of those guys is believing this fucking bullshit? They're not going to hire you as a black person. And so When you're a black person, an honest person, never committed a crime in your life, never committed a violent crime in your life, you're qualified, you have the degrees, you have the certifications, and the only thing stopping you from feeding yourself and your family are fuckers like this who think like this and who speak like this, well then, of course, the government needs to step in and put things in place to make it so that you cannot discriminate against the hiring of black people, or even going a step further and incentivizing companies to hire black people. Why? Because they're going to hire the black people, and guess what? They're not going to show up. And here's the reality. The only person you're worried about showing up to the job and just shooting everybody is a white guy. There's no company where the manager is walking around and wondering if Tyrone is going to show up tomorrow with the fucking 9 and start shooting it. No. If anybody is going to do that, just based off of history and statistics, it's going to be a white man. And so when the black guy, he gets hired and he does his job and he does it well and he doesn't shoot anybody, then they have to confront the fact that what they believed about black people was false. And this is how things like affirmative action and DEI help to make progress in this society.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So, no, I think that white people...
Maybe it's fine. It's a lose situation. How is that a loss? How did you lose because you stood next to a black guy and nothing happened?
I think that white people have been beaten into submission. They were afraid to...
The people who did the beatings and the lynchings and the whippings and the rapes are crying about being beaten. Crazy.
Tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person.
Again, look, if this is the case, why is the only example he keeps reaching for is one that involved a black man who was both schizophrenic and not young? Right? You would think if this was happening, if there was this plague of violent young black men on white society, he should be able to reel off like 20 names with ease, like how black people can just reel off names of innocent black people who've been murdered by the police unjustifiably. Right? Why can't you do that as a white man if there is such an issue? Why can't you name Timmy, little Timmy, little Johnny, little Blake, little Blaine, little Tyler, right? Why can't you name all these names of young white people who are just, drinking a cup of coffee when some random rogue, insane young black guy just came up and shot him and stabbed him? Because it doesn't exist. It's not real. This is a fantasy. These people, they don't live in reality.
They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people, are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago.
That was not a narrative. I never heard that narrative, that the reason black people are violent is because of police brutality. Now, yes, it is true that black people per capita have more violent interactions with the police than white people, because it's also been proven that police officers are more aggressive and more violent with black people. When's the last time you heard about a white guy being shot unjustifiably by the police? Either it doesn't happen or white people don't care about it, which I think obviously, I do believe that there are white people who do get shot unjustifiably by the police and do suffer from police brutality. Smaller percentage of the population, of course, but I do believe it does happen. But again, this is the thing about white culture, especially racist white culture. They don't actually care about themselves. This isn't actually about helping the white person out. This isn't actually about protecting white people, because when white men are killed, wrongfully by the police, they don't care. They don't say anything. They don't protest in the streets. That's not our problem. Why don't y'all have a problem with your own people getting killed by the police? Or it doesn't happen. So why is it that only black people, why is it that only innocent black people get murdered by the police? You don't think that's a problem? Interesting.
Example, the police change the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense.
Most white people that get mugged are mugged by white people. And you don't think they do the same thing? You don't think white robbers, they also try to appear as least suspicious as possible so that you can lower your guard? That's how they end up robbing you. And they do most of the robbing of the white community.
And then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person,
how do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's
schools?
white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America...
Why does it matter? A very insignificant percentage of black people are murderers. So using your own logic, you see, this is what they want to only talk about per capita when they're trying to attack black people. But as soon as we want to talk per capita with some things going on in your community, like the fact that y'all do these unhinged, crazy mass shootings, this is not what black people do. Gang violence is retaliatory, right? I'm in a gang, you're in a gang. You kill my brother, I kill you. I kill you, your brother kills me. So on and so forth, forever and ever, amen. Black people aren't going into random suburbs and killing innocent black people. Black people aren't going into schools and just shooting up random students. This is the unhinged behavior that we see almost exclusively coming out of the white population, right? And so I argue that it makes far less sense and is far more evil because, yeah, murder is bad, but let's just be honest. If I killed your brother, it kind of makes sense why you'd want to kill me, right? Explain to me why you as a white guy want to shoot up, you know, a church, a school, a mall. Like, what did these people ever do to you? They did nothing to you.
Vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
and
just
what proportion of what proportion?
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Wait, is my mic working?
What proportion? Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violence.
You lose. If we're using the per capita argument, then you've lost, because per capita, it's almost all white people doing this shit. If you want to talk about proportionality, well, then as a proportion of the black population, less than 1% of black people ever do this shit. And if you want to say, well, the proportion is still too high, less than 1% is still way too much, right? Less than 0.05% is still way too much. Well, then why do you get into cars? Because you have a much, much higher likelihood of dying in a car crash than you do of ever being killed by a black person, especially if you're white. But even if you're black, and black people are primarily the group of people that suffer at the hands of black murderers. Again, their arguments all fall apart.
Violent crime or involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population. And everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60 to 65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb, or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying
of
to you is, by your logic, if
Piers isn't getting it, though. He's not getting it. The answer is so easy. All you have to do is turn it back around on him and ask him what percentage of black people commit murders.
We now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb, or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart, actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%.
It's not, and that's the problem. That's the problem. He doesn't know, or he's lying. But either way, he's wrong.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
See, so why is it that you are prescribing that people behave in a certain way based on information that you don't even know? Oh my God. The debate is over right there. Jesus Christ, Piers. I mean, I appreciate this, man. I appreciate you trying. But honestly, if you're not going to do it properly, man, you just make... There are dumb, low IQ white people who are hearing this and they're thinking that Nick is making sense. Oh, God, man.
It's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs.
No, it's because schools that are in neighborhoods that are funded by property tax, they have more resources. And so the teachers are better paid and the facilities are better. That's why. It has nothing to do with the fear. Again, where is the outrage? Where are the news articles? Oh, today, little Jimmy, who was going to a predominantly black school, was murdered by a Crip. Where's that story? Where's that story? It's not happening. What is happening is little Timmy's getting lined up by fucking Tyler, the incel, who listens to Nick Fuentes.
Gonna be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school.
But they don't shoot indiscriminately. They don't go to school because they're angry and sexually repressed and feel lonely and just take it out on innocent people. They're targeting other people in other gangs, people they got beef with. And obviously it's wrong, and nobody's saying that that's how people should deal with their problems. But trying to make it seem as if they're the same this is completely false.
And all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not livable.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of... No,
the proportion
again,
of the population.
Are you hearing it? No.
See, I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say,
okay,
well, it's true. And when you're confronted
What-
with,
but you're-
when you're
wait,
confronted
what's
with
the
reality,
figure?
you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No,
yet-
tell me the number, and then
you're
Okay.
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because
no one's buying this. This
kids.
argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basic.
No, but that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you compare the proportion of whites that are violent to the proportion of blacks that are violent? But even more relevant is what percentage of white people are killed by white people. That is what you need to focus on. Why do you have a problem with the one white guy that gets killed by a black guy, but you have no problem with the 8 white guys that get killed by white guys? Explain that. If the problem is people being killed, fuck per capita. Fuck per capita. If what you really care about is the loss of life, why not prioritize the greatest source of the loss of life in your community, which is your own people? It's because you're racist and you don't actually care about the loss of life. You're just looking for any angle that you can exploit to demonize black people.
Of the monologue is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference. And it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable.
You're right. You have a far greater likelihood, if you're a white person, of being killed by a white person in all of these cities. That's the reality. Sure, if you're a white person and for whatever reason you decide to wander into a black neighborhood that you're not from, that you don't know any of the people, that has a high rate of violence, yeah, you're more than likely going to be killed by a black person than a white person. The grand majority of the people there are black, and it's a very violent neighborhood. But so long as you stay in the areas that you are from and that you operate within, well, then the greatest threat to you is a white man.
And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yeah. Well, if there's too much black on white, then there is way too fucking much white on white.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you can go ahead and check out the entire debate between Nick and Piers Morgan. They talk about other things as well. We probably will react to some other segments from this interview. But yeah, man, you guys go ahead and let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. And until next time, peace out.